The galaxy was in trouble. The Kork, an alien species, had once been powerful and united, ruling over their world with great strength and wisdom. But now, their society was falling apart. Their homeworld, Koros, was dying. Wars were raging across their planet, and the environment was crumbling. The once green fields had turned to dust, and the seas had dried up. What had once been a land of beauty and prosperity was now a land of chaos and despair. The Kork had tried everything to fix their world. They had sent diplomats to negotiate peace between the warring factions, but nothing worked. They had sent scientists to study the planet's problems, but their best ideas couldn't reverse the damage. They had tried to fight off the invaders who were slowly taking over their colonies, but the Kork were losing. Their once mighty fleet was now a shadow of its former self, and their armies were scattered and weak. In their desperation, the Kork leaders knew they needed help. But who could save them now? Their technology was advanced, but it seemed useless against the enemies they faced. Their strongest warriors were being defeated in battle after battle. The Kork had lost hope. That was when they remembered the Deathworlders. The Deathworlders were legends. Across the galaxy, they were feared for their strength and their ability to survive in the most dangerous environments. The most famous Deathworlders were humans. Stories about them had traveled far and wide. Humans were known for their bravery, their survival skills, and their unwillingness to give up. It was said that even in the face of death, humans would fight back, using their wits and their willpower to survive. They were a species that had faced countless challenges, storms, wild beasts, and invaders, and they had always come out on top. The Kork had heard the stories, but they had never truly believed in the Deathworlders' power. Now, though, they had no choice. The Kork were desperate. They needed help, and they needed it fast. A team of Kork diplomats was sent to Earth, the home of the humans, with the hope of forming an alliance. If the humans could teach them the strength to survive, perhaps the Kork could fight back against their enemies and save their world. The journey to Earth was long, but the Kork had no other option. They had to find the Deathworlders and ask for their help or face total destruction. As their ships entered Earth's atmosphere, the Kork looked out at the strange, dangerous world that lay before them. They had heard much about the humans and their power, but now they would see it for themselves. Would the Deathworlders truly be able to help them? Or would they be another failed hope in a galaxy that seemed to be falling apart? The Kork's ships landed on Earth, and as they stepped out onto the planet's surface, they were greeted by the harsh reality of the Deathworld. Earth was everything the Kork had heard about and more. It was a world full of dangers, vast deserts, endless oceans, and forests filled with wild beasts. Everything about Earth was unpredictable. The weather could turn violent in seconds. The animals could be deadly. The environment itself was a constant challenge to anyone who lived there. But what fascinated the Kork most was the humans. They had survived on this planet, despite all the dangers it offered. In fact, they had thrived. Stories about humans were known all across the galaxy. The Kork had heard about their amazing survival skills, their ability to adapt to any situation, and their never-ending fight for survival. The humans had faced some of the deadliest creatures in the galaxy: giant predators, monsters of the deep, and invaders from space, and they had won. It was said that humans could fight and survive anywhere. Whether they were trapped in a deadly jungle, stranded in a freezing wasteland, or fighting against powerful invaders, humans never gave up. They found ways to overcome impossible odds, using their intelligence, their tools, and their teamwork. The Kork had never seen anything like it. The Kork had once thought of the humans as just another primitive species, struggling to survive on a dangerous planet. But now they understood the truth. The Deathworlders were far more than just survivors. They were warriors, fighters who had learned to defeat any challenge thrown at them. The Kork were in awe of their reputation. As the Kork walked through the bustling streets of Earth's cities, they saw humans in action. The way they worked together, built their world, and adapted to every challenge amazed them. They noticed how humans were constantly learning from their mistakes and getting stronger. When a problem arose, humans didn't just accept it. They found a way to beat it. They had no fear of failure. They didn't back down when things got tough. Instead, they fought harder. The Kork also heard stories of human history, how they had faced wars, natural disasters, and even alien invaders, and had always come out on top. The humans were not just physically strong. They were mentally tough as well. They had learned to fight not only with their bodies but with their minds. They had created weapons, strategies, and technologies that had made them one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Kork, with their once proud civilization crumbling, were now looking at the humans with new eyes. These creatures, who had once seemed so simple and weak, were now the key to their survival. The Kork needed the strength of the humans, not just to fight battles, but to rebuild their broken world. But would the humans help them? The Kork weren't sure. They had heard rumors that humans could be stubborn, even cruel to outsiders. But desperate times called for desperate measures. The Kork had no choice but to hope that the Deathworlders, with all their strength and wisdom, would agree to help them before it was too late. The Kork had arrived on Earth with a single purpose: to ask the humans for help. They were desperate, and they knew this might be their only chance to survive. But as they walked into the human government building, they couldn't help but feel nervous. The humans were not like the Kork. They were different, wild, unpredictable, and, in many ways, terrifying. The Kork leaders, hoping to make a good first impression, bowed before the humans. They offered gifts of technology and knowledge, things they thought might earn the humans' respect. But the humans just looked at them, their expressions unreadable. The room was quiet as the Kork leaders began to speak. "We come in peace," said the Kork ambassador, his voice filled with both hope and fear. "Our world is dying, and our people are being destroyed by enemies stronger than us. We need your help, Deathworlders. We need your strength." The humans didn't respond right away. They stared at the Kork for a long moment, as if considering their words. The Kork could feel the weight of their silence. They had heard stories that humans were not quick to trust outsiders, especially when it came to matters of war. The humans had their own struggles. They had their own battles to fight. Why would they help the Kork? Finally, one of the human leaders spoke. His name was General Nathaniel Black, a seasoned war commander known for his fierce tactics and calm in the face of danger. "Strength, you say?" General Black's voice was low, but filled with authority. "You come to us asking for help, but you don't even understand what strength really means." The Kork were confused. They had believed that strength came from powerful weapons, armies, and technology. Surely, with all their knowledge, the humans would understand. But the humans' words were not what they expected. Black continued, "Strength is not just about guns or warships. It's not about how big your army is or how many weapons you have. Strength is about survival. It's about the will to keep fighting, even when everything seems lost. It's about finding a way to win, no matter what." The Kork were silent. This was not what they had come to hear. They had hoped the humans would give them weapons, ships, or even just advice on how to defeat their enemies. But what they heard was something different. It was a philosophy. It was a way of thinking. Strength was not just power. It was resilience. General Black stood up and walked over to the Kork ambassador, his eyes locked on the aliens. "We can teach you how to fight, but first, you must learn how to survive. And that means understanding what true strength is." The Kork were stunned. They had never thought of strength this way. They had thought strength was about numbers and force. But now they realized that the humans had a different kind of power, a power that came from within. "We will teach you," Black said, "but you have to be willing to learn." The Kork nodded, their hearts filled with both hope and uncertainty. Could they really learn from these humans? Could they truly become strong in the way the humans were strong? It was a question they would have to answer in time. But for now, they had a chance, and that chance was all they needed. The Quark were eager to prove themselves, but they soon learned that the path to becoming like the Deathworlders would not be easy. The humans weren't going to simply hand them power. They would have to earn it. General Black had a plan. He wanted to show the Quark the real meaning of strength by putting them to the test. He had arranged a series of combat simulations where the Quark would face off against human soldiers in a controlled environment. It wasn't real war, but it was the closest the Quark could get to understanding how humans fought. The Quark were confident. They were strong and had advanced technology. Surely, they thought, they could defeat the humans in this test. But as they stepped into the training arena, they began to feel a sense of uncertainty. The humans' weapons weren't as advanced as theirs, but the soldiers looked calm, almost relaxed. There was something about their attitude that made the Quark uneasy. The first round began, and the Quark charged forward, using their superior strength and speed. They launched a full assault, hoping to overwhelm the human soldiers with brute force. But the humans didn't retreat. Instead, they used the environment to their advantage. They took cover, worked in small teams, and used clever tactics to counter the Quark's attacks. The Quark found themselves frustrated. No matter how hard they hit, the humans adapted and fought back. By the end of the first round, the Quark had lost. The humans, though injured, had successfully defended themselves and held their ground. The Quark were shocked. They had expected an easy victory, but instead, they had been outmaneuvered at every turn. General Black was quiet as the Quark regrouped. He could see the doubt in their eyes, but he knew this was just the beginning. The true test was not in physical strength. It was in mental strength. He spoke to them calmly. You were strong, but you fought with your power alone. Strength is more than that. It's about using your mind, adapting to the situation, and working with others. If you keep charging in like that, you'll never win. The Quark leaders were silent, their pride bruised. They had been warriors, the strongest in the galaxy, but they had failed. They hadn't seen the humans' true power until now. The next round was different. The Quark tried to change their approach. They focused on strategy, thinking ahead, and working as a team. The humans guided them, offering advice and encouragement. Slowly, the Quark began to understand. They learned to think before acting, to anticipate their enemies' moves, and to use the environment in their favor. By the end of the day, the Quark had improved. They had lost fewer battles, and their teamwork had become stronger. It wasn't enough to beat the humans, but it was a start. They had taken their first step toward understanding what true strength was. The Quark were tired, but they knew this was only the beginning. They had much to learn, and they were ready to keep fighting. This time, it wasn't just about winning. It was about becoming stronger together. The days after the first test were filled with long hours of training and learning. The Quark were not used to this kind of training. They were used to relying on their strength and technology, but now they had to learn a new way of thinking. General Black and his soldiers worked with them, teaching them how to adapt and fight smarter, not harder. At first, the Quark struggled. They found it difficult to let go of their old ways. The humans taught them how to think on their feet, how to use the environment to their advantage, and how to work as a team. The Quark were strong, but they weren't used to relying on others. They had always been lone warriors, fighting alone, trusting only their own power. But the humans had something different, something the Quark didn't have. The humans had learned the power of unity, of working together toward a common goal. It was a concept the Quark had never truly understood. General Black could see the doubt in the Quark's eyes. They were reluctant to change, unwilling to trust their fellow warriors the way humans did. But he was patient. He knew that the Quark were proud, and they needed time to understand. He pushed them hard. He made them work together, even when it seemed impossible. Slowly, the Quark began to see the value in teamwork. They began to see how much stronger they were when they worked together instead of fighting alone. The turning point came during a live-fire exercise. The Kork and the humans were pitted against each other in a simulated battle, this time with live weapons. The Kork were hesitant at first, unsure if they could trust their new methods. They had been taught to fight with precision, to rely on their strength and technology. But in this exercise, they had to rely on something else, each other. At first, the battle seemed like it would be another disaster. The Kork charged in, using their usual tactics, but they quickly found themselves outmaneuvered. The humans were everywhere, moving quickly, striking from unexpected angles, and working together as a team. The Kork were forced to adapt. They couldn't win this battle by charging in blindly. It was then that something clicked. The Kork began to communicate, to work together as the humans had taught them. They covered each other's backs, used the terrain to their advantage, and outsmarted the human soldiers with quick thinking and clever tactics. It wasn't enough to defeat the humans, but it was enough to prove a point. The Kork were changing. They were learning. General Black watched the battle unfold, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The Kork were finally beginning to understand. They had started to see that strength wasn't just about power. It was about working together, thinking quickly, and adapting to whatever came their way. For the first time, the Kork began to believe that they could survive. They weren't just learning from the humans. They were becoming something new, something stronger. They were becoming allies. Weeks passed, and the Kork continued their training with the humans. They had learned many things: how to think before acting, how to rely on others, and how to adapt to any situation. They had come a long way from the arrogant warriors who had landed on Earth, full of pride and confidence. Now they were beginning to understand what true strength was. The humans had taught them how to survive, how to think like survivors, not just fighters. They had learned that in war, as in life, the key to victory wasn't just brute strength. It was knowing when to fight, when to hold back, and when to use everything around you to your advantage. But the Kork hadn't yet faced a real battle. Training was one thing, but war was something else. The Kork were eager, but they knew that they had to prove themselves. They couldn't let the humans think they were weak. They had to show the Deathworlders that they were worth the training, worth the effort. Their chance came when the Kork homeworld was attacked again. The enemy, the Zorak, were a fierce and merciless species who had been invading the Kork's colonies for years. The Kork had been unable to stop them on their own, but now, with the humans' training, they felt ready. The Kork ships, with a small fleet of human warships as allies, entered the battlefield. The Zorak were ruthless, using advanced weapons and overwhelming numbers. But the Kork and humans had something the Zorak didn't: unity and strategy. They worked together, combining their strengths in a way the Zorak couldn't anticipate. General Black led the human ships, coordinating with the Kork to launch a surprise attack. The Kork fleet, now better organized and trained, took the lead, using hit-and-run tactics and hitting the Zorak where they least expected it. The humans provided cover fire, using their advanced weapons to disable enemy ships from a distance. The battle was intense. The Zorak were powerful, but the Kork and humans fought as one, using everything they had learned. The Kork soldiers fought with greater precision, no longer relying on brute force alone. They used their new tactics to outsmart the enemy, taking advantage of every opportunity. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the Zorak were losing. The Kork and humans had taken control of the battlefield, pushing the enemy back. The Zorak ships began to retreat, unable to withstand the combined might of the two species. When the battle ended, the Kork stood victorious. It wasn't a complete victory. They had lost many soldiers, and the war was far from over, but it was their first real win in years. The Zorak had been driven away, and the Kork had proven to themselves that they were capable of winning, even against overwhelming odds. General Black walked over to the Kork leader, a look of pride in his eyes. "You did it," he said simply. "You fought as one. You fought like true warriors." The Kork leader nodded, their heart filled with pride. They had learned so much from the humans, They had gained something far more valuable than weapons or technology. They had gained the strength to fight as a team, to survive, and to win. For the first time in a long while, the Kork believed that they could save their world. The victory against the Zorak had brought the Kork hope, but it came at a heavy cost. As the last of the enemy ships fled, the battlefield was left in silence. The Kork fleet had been battered, and many of their warriors lay injured or dead. The humans had fought bravely alongside them, but they too had lost soldiers. General Black, though proud of their success, knew that this was only the beginning of a long, difficult journey. The Kork were not used to losing. Their society had always been one of strength, and defeat had never been an option. But now, with their homeworld on the edge of collapse, the Kork had come to understand the harsh reality of war. Victory wasn't just about defeating the enemy, it was about paying the price for survival. As the Kork and human forces regrouped, the true scale of their losses became clear. Ships were damaged, weapons had been depleted, and medical teams worked tirelessly to treat the wounded. The Kork soldiers who had survived the battle sat quietly, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and grief. They had won, but the cost had been steep. The war was far from over, and they knew that more battles would come. General Black visited the Kork leader, standing silently beside him as they watched the wreckage of the battlefield. The smell of burning metal filled the air, and the sounds of repair crews could be heard in the distance. "You did well," Black said, his voice quiet but firm. "But victory always has a cost. We've lost good men today." The Kork leader nodded, his gaze distant. "We have lost many, and we know there will be more losses ahead. But we are no longer alone. We fight together now. We have learned the strength of unity." Black studied the Kork leader for a moment. The alien's face was hard, but there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. It was clear that the Kork had changed, and so had their understanding of what it meant to be strong. "We fought well," the Kork leader said, his voice steady. "But we must continue to grow. We must learn, adapt, and fight smarter. Our enemies will not stop, and neither can we." General Black placed a hand on the Kork leader's shoulder. "You've made great progress. But remember, this isn't just about fighting. It's about survival. It's about knowing when to fight and when to wait." The Kork leader nodded. They had learned that lesson the hard way. In the heat of battle, they had often charged in headfirst, relying on their strength and numbers. But now they knew that victory didn't always come through force alone. They had learned to adapt, to use strategy, and to think before acting. They had learned to survive. As the repair teams worked on the damaged ships and the injured Kork were treated, the alliance between the humans and the Kork grew stronger. It was not without its challenges, but together, they had proven that they could win. The price of victory had been high, but it had been worth it. The Kork had taken their first step towards saving their world. And with the help of the humans, they would continue to fight, not just for victory, but for survival. The alliance between the Kork and the humans had grown stronger with every passing day. Together, they had fought and won their first battle, but peace was always fragile in times of war. The Kork were learning quickly, but the reality of their situation remained. Their world was still in danger, and the Zorak were not the only threat they faced. General Black had warned them that the true test of their alliance would come when things weren't going well. But the Kork didn't fully understand this until it happened. It was late one evening when the alarms went off. The Kork homeworld's defense system had detected a new enemy fleet approaching, a fleet far larger than any the Kork had faced before. This was no ordinary attack. This was an invasion. The Kork and humans rushed to their ships, preparing for battle. The Kork had grown confident in their new strategies, but this enemy was different. The Zorak had been fierce, but they were nothing compared to the new threat. These invaders were well organized, with advanced technology far beyond anything the Kork had ever encountered. The humans, too, had never faced an enemy this powerful. The battle began quickly, and the skies above the Kork homeworld were filled with explosions and laser fire. The Cork and human forces fought together, but they were being overwhelmed. The enemy was relentless. It was clear that they were here not just to conquer, but to destroy. In the midst of the chaos, the Cork leader stood at the command center, staring at the screens. His heart raced as he watched the enemy fleet tear through their defenses. He had fought many battles in his life, but never like this. The Cork had hoped that their new alliance with the humans would give them the strength to protect their world. But now, it seemed as if all their efforts might be for nothing. General Black stood beside the Cork leader, his face grim. "We need a plan," he said, his voice calm despite the intensity of the situation. The Cork leader looked at the human general. "We've trained for this, but I didn't think it would come so soon." Black nodded. "None of us did. But we'd faced impossible odds before. We can't give up now. We'll need to fight smarter, harder, and together." The Cork leader took a deep breath. "I'll give the orders. We fight until the end." As the battle raged on, the Cork and humans fought with everything they had. The enemy was powerful, but the combined strength of the Deathworlders was something the invaders had underestimated. The humans and Cork used their new tactics, hit-and-run strikes, teamwork, and adaptability. But even with all their progress, it wasn't enough. The enemy forces were too great. The Cork leader could feel the weight of failure pressing down on him. He had led his people to this moment, and now it seemed they were about to lose everything. But he refused to give in, not while there was still a chance. "We're not done yet," he said firmly to General Black. "We fight until the last breath." And so the battle continued, fierce and unforgiving, with the fate of the Cork homeworld hanging in the balance. The battle for the Cork homeworld had reached its breaking point. The skies were filled with smoke and debris, and the sounds of war echoed through the planet's atmosphere. The Cork and humans had fought bravely, but the enemy had not relented. Their fleet was vast, their weapons devastating. The Cork homeworld, their last hope for survival, was on the edge of destruction. The Cork leader stood at the command center, staring at the screens showing the ongoing battle. His heart was heavy. The enemy was relentless, and their forces seemed endless. They had fought with everything they had: strategy, teamwork, and courage. But it wasn't enough. The Cork had lost too many ships, and the humans were stretched thin. General Black stood beside him, his face grim. "We can't keep this up forever," he said, his voice low but firm. "We need to make a choice. We can retreat, save what's left, and regroup for another fight, or we can make a final stand." The Cork leader looked at the human general, his eyes filled with determination. "We can't retreat. Not now. We fight for our world, for our people. This is the last chance we have." General Black nodded. "Then we make it count. We give everything we have." The two leaders turned to their forces. The remaining ships of the Cork fleet and the human warships were all they had left. They were battered and broken, but they were not defeated. Together, they would make their stand. The Cork leader gave the order to initiate a full assault. It would be their final attack, an all-out charge against the enemy fleet, using everything they had left. There was no turning back. The battle intensified as the Cork and human ships surged forward, their weapons firing in unison. The Cork warriors aboard their ships fought with everything they had, while the human soldiers worked together to provide support and guidance. The two species had become more than just allies. They were a single force, united in their purpose. But despite their best efforts, the enemy was too strong. The Cork ships were being destroyed one by one, and the human warships were barely holding their ground. The Cork leader could see it. Their forces were failing, but he refused to give up. He couldn't let his people fall to the invaders, not after everything they had fought for. In a desperate move, the Cork leader ordered a last-ditch attack, a suicidal charge straight into the heart of the enemy fleet. It was a risky move, but it was their only chance. The Cork and human ships pushed forward, breaking through the enemy lines and heading directly for the enemy flagship. It was a battle like no other. Explosions rocked the battlefield as the ships collided. The Kork and human forces fought with everything they had, refusing to give up. The enemy flagship loomed large ahead, its weapons firing relentlessly at them. And then, at the final moment, the Kork leader made a choice. He activated the final weapon, a last-ditch effort to destroy the enemy flagship. The Kork and human ships fired everything they had, and with a massive explosion, the enemy flagship was destroyed. The battle was over. The Kork had won, but at a great cost. The Kork homeworld had been saved, but their fleet had been nearly wiped out, and the price of victory was high. The Kork leader, though victorious, looked around at the wreckage. They had saved their world, but it had come with a heavy price. The humans, standing beside them, had proven what true strength was. It was not just in physical power, but in the will to fight, to stand together against the impossible. The Kork leader turned to General Black. "We did it," he said softly. Black nodded, his voice quiet. "We did it, and we'll rebuild together."